Welcome to Straight from the Muzzle, folks, where we're anything but straight. My name is Space.
And my name is Bix.
And we welcome you to our episode, which is about what today?
Today, we have the honor of interviewing the Vice Chair and the Executive Chair for Attendee Relations for Vancoufur.
And that's, I'm not going to lie. I think I've misspelled Vancoufur multiple times. What is the correct spelling for Vancoufur?
Like Vancoufur?
Okay, good. I got it right. I kept doing like a V before it.
I'll make a minor correction here is that I am the executive of Marketing and Communications. I am not the vice chair.
Oh, okay. I heard
that's my husband. That's not me.
I see.
Ooh.
And actually, Vancoufur has two vice chairs, I should say.
Really?
There is a senior and a junior vice chair.
A junior. Okay. Is that like a protege kind of a thing?
Kind of. It's basically somebody who's learning the ropes.
Okay. So they're kind of like an intern, but like a volunteer unpaid intern.
We're all volunteer unpaid interns in this organization. Yeah. And that is something I like to stress because a lot of people don't think we are, but we are all unpaid from the board all the way down to anybody who walks in to volunteer at con. Like, we are all unpaid interns, okay? We do this as a sadistic version of fun.
I've always wondered because I'm like, do they make money and what do they do with the money kind of a thing? But we'll
get into that later.
Yeah.
Really quick, before we get too far in, would you two like to introduce yourselves for our audiences and give us your correct positions? Because apparently I had it wrong.
Yeah.
For sure.
Go, Silver. You can go first and I'll introduce myself.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Silver. I am the executive for Attendee Services for Vancoufur, which means I oversee and basically help smooth everything that is the link between the attendees and the convention itself.
And
nice.
I am ShadowsMyst, also known just mostly as Mist because there's way too many shadows in this fandom. And I am the marketing and communications executive. I am also the community rep for the BCAEA for this year. I have been a chair in the past, so that is something I have done. But my job mostly consists of anything marketing, theme, guests, as in like invited guest related relations, public relations. My branch also does our website, our VR chat, Twitch, live marketing, PR, all that good stuff, photography, videography. What else am I forgetting? Art. I manage the art branch that produces all of our assets and stuff. And we also manage the theme. So theme, writing, building, all that stuff is all under my branch.
Very nice. Your team did a really good job with the website because I just typed in Vancoufur.com and it directed me straight to Vancoufur.org, which means you've got redirects in there.
We do.
That's good. That's smart.
We do.
I like that when I go on the website, I can actually see previous versions. That's really neat.
Yeah, we do have an archive. People can go and see what we've done in the past.
Cool.
So really quick, you did say you were the representative for the BCAEA. Can I ask what that is?
BCAEA, yes.
That's the same thing.
Yeah, that is the parent organization. Vancoufur is basically run by the nonprofit, which is the BC Anthropomorphic Events Association. And it's bcanthroevents.org is the website for that. It is a incorporated nonprofit in BC and was incorporated in 2015, if I remember correctly. And yeah, so it is basically the organization that provides continuity and manages finances, and we operate under. So the BCA has three main conventions, Vancoufur being the largest, Tales of Summer, which is coming out and starting this year in August.
Ooh.
And that's actually a 19 plus convention. And then we have the Vancouver Pony Expo in January, which is a My Little Pony Con.
Ah, okay. Sweet. Those are still happening.
BC stands for British Columbia, I assume?
Yes.
Okay. I just want to get that out of the way so nobody's confused.
Yeah. And I'm the community rep. So I'm the person who's out there talking to the community and bringing community concerns, ideas, issues to the board's attention and basically making sure that there's communication happening. I'll also be, once I'm officially back into the position, I'm just still in the transitionary because it just happened. I will be managing their social media and such.
Okay.
And to clarify to those who are still maybe wondering where this con is, it's not the Vancouver in the United States. It's on Canada's side.
Yeah, it's BC. It's actually not even in Vancouver. It's in Richmond, BC.
Oh, that's so great.
It's like MFF being in Chicago, but it's actually in Rosemont.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, very, very similar.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It just happens to be where places where you can host larger conventions are located.
So today we have something different when it comes to interviewing our guests. We've got 2 lines of questioning going on. One that gives you the workings of how a con goes, and then another set where it talks about the behind the scenes point of view, which we've not done before. Also, I'm just really excited that I can cross this off my episode bucket list because I've always wanted to do an episode where we interview con staff about the actual convention itself. We've never been able to do it before. We've always just done like points of view from volunteering because I've volunteered for like Biggest Little Fur Con for a couple of times, but I've never been able to see it from like, you know, like the staffing's point of view, which is really cool. So thank you for agreeing to do this.
Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, thank you very much.
We're definitely going to ask you some incriminating questions. Just kidding.
Where were you?
When this happened, where were you? I was in a dumpster fire. Can one of you walk us through what your roles involve when running a furry? We already went over that, I guess.
Kind of,
yeah.
Like our specific roles. I mean, we can talk a little bit more in depth about what we do in our specific roles as an executive, if you like.
Sure, let's go with that.
So generally speaking, the executive in our structure, now I'm not going to say all con structures, I'm going to speak specifically to Vancouver's structure, is there's the chair, the vice chairs, and the executives. And the executive is supposed to manage a branch which has a set of leads in it and get those leads to make sure that they are doing the jobs they need to do by the time they need to do it, the dependencies that are required for different branches. The executives also select their leads, so they would have a say in who is hired, who they want to work with, and then those leads get to pick their team essentially from people who are qualified or interested in working in those areas. And then generally speaking, as executives, we are supposed to help those leads in any way we can with things like training and all that kind of thing, getting them people to fill their minimum staff complement that they kind of need to basically fill out their sheets to make sure that they have enough coverage to do the entire con so there's no holes. In an ideal world, this doesn't happen often. So it's just one of those things with a volunteer organization. You kind of never know what you're going to get in terms of volunteer numbers. And as executives, we also fill in if there's any holes. So if we don't have a lead for a particular department, like for example, last year, I didn't have a lead for my guest relations position for our guests of honor and our community spotlight to like basically tell them all the things, do all the things. I have to fill in that position until such time as I can find somebody to do it. So we are catch-alls for that. We're also kind of obligated to go to the meetings to make sure that we're communicating with the chair and bringing concerns from our branches up to the chairs and making sure that there are decisions made in a timely fashion.
That's a lot.
It is. It is a lot of work. It is. It's not for the weak of faint of heart, I guess.
No.
But for the right person, it can be incredibly rewarding.
And I can attest to that too. Especially since I have one branch underneath my line of duties, I guess, where there wasn't a lead as well. And it involves finding volunteers, setting up a system, training those volunteers in that system, and basically seeing a little creation of mine start to grow and flourish to the point where I wasn't needed there 24/7. And it allowed me, one, to help out the rest of the departments that I'm supposed to be communicating with. And it also, gave me that experience of helping set up and lead a team to a successful and well-managed system. So it's very rewarding when you can get it under control.
Mm-hmm.
This is a crazy question, but if you can calculate it, how many actual executive and lead positions are there total in staff?
There are 5 executives. I can hold on a second. Let me grab the org chart.
Yeah, I got the sheet pulled up right now.
Oh, do you have the org chart? Okay, you go ahead. You can do it.
Yeah. So we got one con chair. We have, as Miss said before, the 2 vice chairs. So one senior vice chair and one junior vice chair. And we have 5 different branches that basically work together to help run the convention. So we have a business branch, marketing and communications branch, events, operations, and attendee services. Each one of those branches has 4 to either 4 to 8 different leads underneath it that each handle individual tasks. So as far as staffing goes, we have 5 different executives, 2 con vice chairs, and 1 main chair. And each one of them has 4 to 8 leads in an ideal circumstance.
That's a lot of people.
Well, I can tell you,
leads?
generally speaking, there is about 300 volunteers in total.
Oh, Wow. That's so much. Out of that 300, how many are just like legit? I mean, when I say legit volunteers, I don't mean like none of you guys are legitimate. What I mean is like, out of that amount, how many would you say are the volunteers that are just volunteering because they can? And they're not part of like the executive decisions and stuff.
I would describe it as we have about 150 core volunteers. Now, those are volunteers that have usually volunteered for multiple years, have a specific skill set in a specific area, and come back year over year. So they're kind of our core of our volunteer team. They are the ones who form our leads, our seconds, our executives. Like that is that group. And then there's about 150 that kind of come, go, or are new.
Okay.
So that's kind of our breakdown as far as staffing is for the last couple of years. It does change for year to year. And also usually at con, for some reason, a lot of people are drop sick. Like a lot of people are sick. So we usually lose about 25 people just to illness no-shows. So it is a bit chaotic.
And to clarify, like a con cannot function without volunteers, right?
No.
Like,
volunteers are the lifeblood of our convention. I've always told everybody that I meet who ask about running a con, starting con, is like con running is a team sport. You cannot do it by yourself. You absolutely 100% need a team, and you need a team of reliable, competent people that are going to show up and do the things that need to be done. And if you want to run for multiple years, you need to have enough people to try to relieve those people as well, because volunteers will burn out if you overuse them.
Yeah, it's crazy. I think at one point I heard that a con had so many volunteers, they actually had to start turning people away. And I'm like, well, that's a new thing. I've never heard that before.
I was going to say, was that FW? I feel like that was FWA.
I don't know if it was FWA or if it was another con, but I'm just like, damn, you just have so many people. You just have to like turn them away.
Do not have that problem right now for Vancouver.
that would be a nice problem to have. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
Right? That would be a nice problem to have. What does the planning timeline look like from start to finish? Just out overall. And that's kind of a loaded question because I'm sure there's a crap ton that goes in.
I mean, I can summarize it in the sense of like kind of give you an idea at least of Vancouver's con cycle. And it kind of is similar for most cons. You're going to have to break it down into about 4 quarters. And that's sort of like April to May, June to September. Like it kind of breaks it up into like 3-month increments. But basically, it's a year-long process. And things need to happen at certain times. A lot of it is driven by registration, hotel timelines. Those are usually the biggest driving factors of when the hotel opens, how that con handles their hotel in terms of like bookings and things, and how registration interacts with that. We have a tier at Vancoufur where you can get your hotel room with your registration. So like basically when those open, it's a big deal for our audience that they want to get that particular tier, and there's only 30 of them available. So we have to plan media releases and stuff around that. And then the other higher tiers also have a hotel priority registration. We do our hotel in sort of a tiered release fashion, and it is for the hotel does not get basically slammed and we take their systems down, because we have done this in the past and they really don't like that very much. So we have done this in order to make it much easier for people to register and for people who have paid for higher registration to make sure that they do get a hotel in the complex. There are 3 hotels that are part of our main hotel block, so it's not small. But there's the planning phase, which is basically from April to May. May, we try to get most of our leads and everything hired. So that basically June to August is a lot of the pre-work, things like vendors opens at the end of August or in the middle of August in there. Sometimes we've been a little late for the last couple of years, so they've kind of got pushed to September, but usually it's in August. So there's a lot of marketing that goes into that. There's a bunch of art that goes into that. We're still hiring in that process, but a lot of departments are getting going in that time period. So they're kind of starting to put their stuff on the website and blah, blah, blah. But like in the planning phases, like when we make the website live, for example. But like it is so big, I could tell you this all day long, but basically it is every department and every role has things to do in the 4 quarters. And then there's the planning, there's basically the work, there's the work in 2 mid quarters, and then there's what we call crunch, which is where we're desperately trying to finish everything that we couldn't get done in the last 2 quarters.
I'm aware of crunch. I'm aware of that one.
Yes, crunch is pretty universal. There's always reasons why things don't happen, especially when you're running with volunteers. And we had a lot of problems this year with our suppliers, and that actually ended up kind of screwing us over at the end.
That was fun.
Yeah, that was fun. Yeah, it was absolutely a pleasure when half of our gifts arrived 2 days after con. Great, thank you.
Was that a supplier issue plus current tariffs and stuff, or was that just a supplier issue?
There was actually several suppliers, some that were overseas, some that were from the US. So I can't say for sure what caused it. It just seemed to be supplier screwed over time, whatever. So we've got some gifts we need to now mail out in order to get them to their people.
That's insane. Crunch time, when I was on BLFC volunteer staff, I am very aware of the crunch period. What's really unique, though, about volunteering, and I don't know if this is something that you guys do as well, much like priority check-in when it comes to picking up your badges, the staff also have that priority too, but it's just in a different area. So we would just go to con ops essentially and pick up our badges and everything that we needed. And I'm like, I don't have to sit in that 45-minute line. Sucks for all you, you know?
We actually do kind of use it as an opportunity. We try to get it open in advance of actual registration and use it as an opportunity to essentially train newbies.
Nice.
On attendee services and on registration as they register volunteers.
That's cool.
So one of the things that I've wanted to know from writing my questions is, where do things tend to bottleneck the most? Whether it be the first few days or just in general throughout the con, or maybe even in the planning process.
Well, from my perspective, there are several things that can bottleneck, and sometimes they're because I wear a lot of hats and I only can do so many things at one time. There are sometimes bottlenecks in production of merch because the artists either can't complete or don't have a graphic designer at the time, and I have to do it because actually that's my profession. And I might be busy dealing with some other issue that I can't hand off yet in, say, HR or something like that. I did a lot of HR work last year, so I had to take care of that. Then I had to take care of this. So sometimes it can get bottlenecked when one volunteer has too many responsibilities. I'm trying desperately to find other people to take my responsibilities, but I'm still not entirely successful. But this is a bottleneck that happens is if there is one volunteer, which I like to call a linchpin volunteer, that is doing all the things and you don't have anybody who can pick up those things, that can become a crunch, period. At con, bottlenecking, you can think of it in a couple of different ways. On the first day, there's probably going to be a bottleneck in registration, for example, attendee services, because actually we did really good about not having a line con this year. I have to give our registration and attendee services huge props for that because that line was clear.
Yeah, we killed it this year. It was amazing.
Yeah, it was absolutely crazy good as far as processing speed was amazing. So I'm just going to say that usually there is that line con risk. You can mitigate it. Obviously, we did. We did have some long lines on Thursday and Friday, especially in the morning. We knew that was going to happen, but we had the people on and we cleared it fairly quickly. So you can anticipate and do things. In terms of other physical bottlenecks, we had a bit of a situation at Vancoufur this year in the fact that we grew by 800 people. Wow. That's a lot of people to grow by.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Normally you don't grow by 800 people. That's not something that normally happens. So because con planning is very far in advance, obviously with our convention halls and stuff, we usually sign 1, 2, sometimes 3-year deals. So how much space we have and how much is very much set from sometimes the year before. So we can't pivot on a dime most of the time, and just having 800 new people show up is difficult to manage at the time. We do our best. We had a lot of complaints about capacity issues this year because we just didn't have space for that many people. What the hell? But we're looking at mitigating it for next year, obviously. But that's one of those things that is just kind of lines got really bottlenecky for very popular events, like our main events, like Floor Wars, Fursuit, Dance Comp, opening closing ceremonies. And we had a lot of lines for panels that were popular, things like that. So we ended up with LineCon elsewhere, but not at registration.
And just kind of tacking onto what Myst was saying too, one of the things that I've kind of noticed myself as far as bottlenecking goes is a lot of times, especially when you have a convention that's run with all volunteers, and a lot of people don't have either training or they don't have the aforehand know-how of like proper communications, who to talk to, who to go to when something happens, like that kind of a list or a mental note that says, okay, this is what I need to do if this happens. A lot of times people will hear one thing and then volunteers will act on another. And, there's a little bit of a miscommunication issue. And that can cause some different issues as far as running the convention goes. But most of the time, and especially this year, I think we did really, really good with it, was we had a few different new approaches as far as training volunteers and having people know where to go and what to do. But when you're looking at bottlenecks on the staffing side, that's probably the biggest one, is having people know where to go, know who to talk to, know what to do in specific situations.
Mm-hmm.
I just had a thought and I don't know where it went. That sucks. It'll come back. Oh, that's what I was going to say. Do you guys use like a separate messaging program to stay stay current?
A lot of times the staff that we just between staff, we have different Discord channels that only staff and executives and leads have access to. So that's one thing. The other thing, like during convention, a lot of times the executives or the leads will be very busy with the departments that they're running, and they won't have time to, check their phone every 5 minutes to make sure something didn't happen. But we'll have the leads and executives will usually have radios that they'll have access to, and they'll be able to call in to, con ops or something else that they can get a hold of. As far as a separate chat room or anything like that, Vancoufur specifically mostly uses Discord and radios on
radio.
scene.
The staffing that I was dealing with, they use Slack, which took me a bit to get used to. But
I love Slack.
Slack is, have you ever used it, Bix?
Unfortunately, yeah.
It's like Teams, but a more, I don't know, a condensed version of it. But we use that to communicate primarily. So if I had a question for the lead, or something was for instance, a mic went out, because I did panels. And so we would constantly be setting up and taking down rooms and making sure that the panelists were good to go and all this, that, and the other. But sometimes we'd have an issue where there's an audio problem and I don't know anything about audio. So I'd have to get on Slack and be like, I have an audio problem. And then 5 minutes later, someone runs over.
So what does a typical day look like for you during the con? I know we kind of talked about this before the recording, but just for our viewers' sake, I'd love to hear both of you kind of explain that, what your individual days are like.
Did you want to go first, Silver?
Yeah, sure. I can start this one off. My typical day is I, wake up probably around, I like to set my alarm for 8 and then be on the con grounds by 8:30 in the morning. Then, because I was lead for the Attendee Services desk this year, I was in the storage room, moving all the boxes from the storage room, because you can't have them out overnight. Moving all the boxes from the storage room back to the Attendee Services desk, getting computers plugged in, getting things ready for the volunteers to help manage during the day. Then once that's all set up, I usually attend the desk until the volunteers arrive. And once the volunteers arrive, usually there's, 2 or 3 that can take that place, make sure that they're situated, get everything going. And then I will duck into con ops. I will sign up my radio for the day, come back out and help with, because usually there's a little bit of a rush in the morning where people like to, collect their stuff or register. And I'll help out and stay with the department for most of that. And then come midday, I'll usually head out, make sure the other department leads that I oversee are running well. So that's, info desk, accessibility needs, the fursuit lounge, and the 3 different games rooms. So I'll make sure that those are running properly, making sure nothing's going on there, seeing if anything needs any fires to put out. And while I'm doing that, I'm usually, checking in on any other event or anything that's going on during my walkthroughs, because I like to be available. I'll help out on the party floor. I'll help out con operations a lot, and I'll kind of run back and forth and put out fires. Then towards the afternoon, evening, if I haven't eaten yet that day, I will probably be yelled at by my volunteers and or the con mom or con dad, because we have a specific role for somebody to make sure that the staff are eating. Because
that's smart.
Because a lot of times the executives or the leads, especially if their department is busy that day, will just not eat. They'll be there, they'll be doing their job, they'll be making sure everything runs properly, and they'll just be there doing that. So if I get yelled at by my volunteers or by the con care team, I'll usually, take the time, go grab a ticket, have late lunch or supper. And then from there, once my department shuts down, it's packing everything up and getting everything stowed away for the night, making sure everything's all good, make sure my volunteers all sign out and make sure they get their hours logged. Then a lot of times, and I'll do this pretty much every night, I will jump up to the after dark kind of thing and make sure that ID checking is going well, make sure the lines are properly managed. Oh, and throughout the day as well, because the desk for attendee services and registration is right beside the main ballroom, so the main events panel. There's usually that's where floor wars and the dance comp and opening and closing ceremonies, like all of the main events go on there. So a lot of times there's usually a big line that can form up for those main events. And I'll usually jump up from the desk and help manage those lines, make sure everything's running properly and smoothly so that people aren't, tripping over each other or blocking fire exits or necessary walking paths.
Yeah.
And towards the evening, once everything's put away for attendee services specifically, I will jump around and help with ops. So I'll do that right until 2 to 3 a.m. And as long as nothing happens, as long as everything's good, I will jump back into bed and do the same thing the next day. So not a lot of sleep throughout the weekend, but it helps.
When you say you pack things up and take them back out, is that including all of the electronics like laptops and stuff?
Yes. Yeah. Anything that's anything of value that shouldn't be left out on a desk overnight with no one watching it has to get packed up.
Jeez, that's so much.
It helps.
So much stuff.
It helps when you have a good team of volunteers. Like this year, I was so blessed with some really good volunteers. I have 3 or 4 names that I could I did put in a glowing review with the con chair regarding them because, a couple different times I wasn't able to be at the desk for, closing up and making sure everything got packed away. But one of the volunteers that I had trained and that I had watched work and realized that, hey, this person's competent. This person actually knows what to do and can take charge. That's awesome. They'll ask for the key to the storage room so that they can pack up for me because they'll catch me. If something's going on or there's a fire to put out, I can't be at the desk. So I'll be helping out elsewhere and they'll come and find me. They'll say, hey, we're going to start packing up and, can we just use the key for a little bit? And I'll just be sitting there. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for taking the initiative. Here's the key. Make sure it comes back to me kind of thing. Huge props to my volunteers for that.
I'm not going to lie. I think I need one of those con cure teams to just for my day to day. I need somebody to make sure I eat and drink water and sleep.
Mm-hmm.
I like they have mom and dad
con mom, con dad,
con moms. It's time for juice time.
There are legends at this point of certain con parents basically grabbing a con chair by the ear and dragging them off to eat.
Shut up.
That was the first con mom was feared by all chairs.
Honestly, that is the best kind of person though to take that role because especially when you have someone like, Shakar who's con chairing and Havoc who's doing a whole bunch of other stuff with vice chairing, they do not have the time to sit and think, hey, I'm kind of getting hungry or hey, did I eat today? It doesn't happen. So you need someone.
So
Havoc sits with the food that they either got brought to them and he tries to eat it. And every time he goes to take a bite, he's pulled away somewhere else. He was trying to eat breakfast for 6 hours.
Oh my God. Jeez.
I have foregone breakfast myself. Probably not healthy, but...
Yeah, but that can happen though. When you get stressed or you're already in the groove, you don't really think of those typical things of, oh, I need food, or oh, I should be drinking more water, or oh, I got to go to the bathroom, but it can wait. And then 2 hours later, it's oh, I really should go to the bathroom.
Yeah. From operations, it's Havoc. So it's you're all different voices calling.
Oh my gosh.
Calling him out to deal with a problem. So it's not that he doesn't want to eat. It's not that he's forgetting. It's that he's literally being pulled away at every opportune where he finds 2 minutes to rub together to shove something in his face. My day looks
like
substantially different
team.
from Silver in the sense of like I do different things. So like I also start early, but at con, because most of the marketing and all of that work is done before the convention and that a lot of that stops, I change over to like HR and media management. So my day is early in the morning, getting up like by 8:30, being at ops, signing people in, making sure that people are getting their rewards, try to make sure that things are being recorded. I was not great at that this year. I totally admit that. I was good at signing people in, not so good at making note about where they were going. But I'm going to make some changes to that because I realized I need a printed schedule. Anyway, the digital one wasn't working properly. That was just a con fail because it didn't work the way I thought it was going to work because con, whatever. I deliver some content at con. So if I wasn't delivering content, like I write a murder mystery and I run a murder mystery, I do the karaoke panel. I also do like a couple of other art related panels.
Damn.
And I participate in some tabletop panels, like I'm one of the panelists. So if I'm not running off to go deliver that, I'm usually running after somebody who's doing media stuff, and there have been complaints. At least this year, I did a lot of that, running after people who were not supposed to be interviewing folk without getting the spiel. We have media policies, and we're trying to work to make them a little bit more clear for people who are content creators as opposed to traditional media, because most of them were originally developed when it was just traditional media, less so when they were dealing with more content creators. And we have had people that have shown up at some of the local conventions, not necessarily ours, but others, trying to do like rage bait stuff. So we have to catch them and kick them out, like those kind of things. So we did have a few people that were less, how shall we say, diplomatic than they probably should have been. But again, I had to go catch them, read them the riot act, and then basically have them either comply or leave. So that's part of the stuff.
That was a thing.
Yeah, that's part of what I did. I also just I'm very much the person doing a lot of the catch-all things, because like I noticed signs aren't set up. So I set people to set up signage. I make sure that, there's lines or something that are not being managed. I will flag ops on that, or I will actively begin to help and get somebody to go tell ops that we need somebody. I'm filling in for a lot of things wherever I'm needed. And if something goes sideways, then I try to fix it with the senior leadership team. If there's a PR incident, if there's something like that, that's going to be my team. I have a PR person specifically for that. And if something happened, like emergency or whatever, we would have handled that. Fortunately, we didn't have one this year, but there have been years where we have. So that's what that team is there for. And a lot of what I was dealing with this year was media. Like, oh my God, so much media and HR.
So really quick, you mentioned the PR team, and I do have a question kind of relating to that. I worry that this question might be like, I don't want it to be like a gotcha kind of question, but I have been curious, like, how do you guys handle like when a potentially controversial event takes place? Like, how would you handle your own BLFC hallway pizza? Like, we have it that way.
we actually already have, and because you haven't heard of it, we did.
You know what? That is how you know it's working, because I haven't heard of any controversy from Vancouver, so that's how you know the PR team is doing their job.
Tight job because it didn't get out.
Right.
Yeah, pretty much. It's like, because you haven't heard of it, our team has done their job. Like there was a major event in 2024 or 2023. Maybe 2023. No, it was 2023. And that was one we definitely needed to do a lot of crisis communications in. But we did handle it, and we handled it just as best we could to be as transparent to our attendees as possible about what was happening, but also at the same time making sure that nobody was panicking and things were getting out of control. We managed to get everything back on track within about an hour or so. Wow. I think it was like an hour and a half. And yeah, like it was definitely a big event as far as crisis communications goes, but my team handled it brilliantly with how both the statements went and how just keeping everybody informed went. So we have generally a fairly transparent policy of like, we try to be as transparent as possible, because it's hard for people to like understand our point of view if we're all secretive about it. So we try to be as transparent about as much as we can be transparent about.
But you can only do that so much, to the point where it's like sometimes they don't need to know.
Yeah, there's definitely, we try to be as transparent as possible when people need to know. Like in the case of this one emergency, people needed to know. In the case of, a pizza in a hallway that was unsavory, nobody needed to know that.
Yeah, but it's funny.
It's funny, sure.
It's hilarious.
But it was a thing where there was, like, yes, that happened, but who cares? Like, it's a nothing burger. Whatever. The hotel cleaned it up. It was gone, within hours.
Wow.
So, because it was just left outside, closed in a box. Like, what do you want? They're just going to clean it up with everything else.
One time when I was at BLFC, we were just coming up from the con floor and there was CSI on the scene. And I'm like, what the hell just happened? But it wasn't furry. It wasn't convention related. Apparently some husband stabbed his wife or something like that. I'm like, oh my God. Thank goodness it wasn't like fandom related at all, but still, there was a lot of things that happened that year. That was just one of the weird things that happened.
Jeez.
But
okay,
that brings me
another question really quick. Sorry.
I've got a question.
Can I?
No, it's my turn.
Can I please ask my...
No, it's my turn.
It's a question I don't have on the list, but it's made me really curious.
But it's my turn now. I'm going to ask this because it's prime time.
Write it down, Bix. Write it down.
How do you ensure the convention is safe, inclusive, and welcoming to everyone? Do you hire private security, or is there a security service you use for the hotel or somewhere else?
So we actually have a couple of different sort of areas that we have to ensure those things. Like that kind of all of that stuff is generally thought of in many different levels. But we first and foremost have our rangers, which is I want to call them de-escalation force. They're not security in that sense, but they are a group of people that are trained. A lot of them have first aid. Some of them are first responders, firefighters, EMTs, like they are already in that sphere. So they function as a mobile group that is looking essentially to make sure that everything is functioning as it should. And if a situation happens, like people are having a fight or if somebody is hurt or whatever, they're going to be part of that first response. Now, the hotel also has a security team that they embed with us. Specifically, we work with the hotel for something that might escalate, need a security person from the hotel as a representative to take care of. Say somebody who is either damaging hotel property, maybe they're being belligerent, maybe they've assaulted somebody, like stuff like that happens, then those people will get involved, all the way up to escalating to police if it gets that high. And yes, they do happen sometimes. Some people just are really terrible when they're high and drunk. So there's different layers of that. But in terms of inclusivity and stuff, we also have an accessibility department, which is tasked with making sure that the accessibility accommodations that we can make are delivered and that we do things like allow early booking for accessible needs. We also have an accessibility pass, which brings anybody that needs it to the front of the line. If they have a mobility aid, they're usually seated at first. And then people who maybe can't walk a long time, but they can sit, will go in next, for example. So we kind of try to prioritize that. There is, generally speaking, we try to be extremely equitable as best as possible. Obviously, nobody's perfect, and we still have obviously more things that we would love to do. A lot of it revolves around liability for us and cost. So we do what we can within our budget and within the scope of what we can accomplish as a group.
Within reason, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, now you can ask your question.
Okay, that's a good thing. It still is relevant. So my previous question was, it kind of tied into what was being said in the last question, and then the question Space asked, how do you guys work with the hotels around the general public? Because I know a lot of hotels, I don't know if your guys' hotel does this, but I know a lot of the hotels will still have just normal guests not there for the convention, or sometimes you have people coming in from off the street to cause a scene. Like, how do you guys deal with that?
We actually do have, that is a consideration that we work with our hotel on, because one of the things that is a stipulation for us is that because our shape of our hotel is very hallway-y, there's a lot of hallways, and one of the main kind of gathering points is the lobby area. And it's not a huge lobby, so they have specifically asked us, for example, that we cannot block the areas where they check people in. Like, we can't have people hanging around those areas or block that for any length of time. Like during the parade, sometimes like there's a crowd of people that will tend to gather in there. So we have to actively have people like rangers and other volunteers just kind of encouraging people not to congregate in areas where they might arrive. And yes, the hotel does have other people come and go. They have contracts with the airport like airlines, like the stewardesses and all stuff, and pilots come in all the time. Most of them are fairly respectful. Like we were coming in on the tail end of another convention. There was still those people around while we were setting up. Like generally speaking, there's not a lot of conflict. Like most people, I feel like furry's getting a little more mainstream, and most people were just kind of really happy to say, hey, can I get a picture, and take a picture. We fortunately did not have too many issues with anybody being disrespectful. There was a few times where we had some touristy types that were being a little bit, they're not asking permission, so we had to have a talk with them, but they didn't understand the etiquette because they didn't speak English very well. It took us a minute to inform them exactly as to what it was kind of that is the respecting. But after that, they were fine. They just asked permission. And that's basically one of our big tenets is you need to ask permission if you can take pictures of. Like if they don't want to, you have to respect that and let them go. And you need to not take crowd shots, please. That's generally part of our media policy. Is to just try to avoid
crab shot.
Not crab, but crowd.
What's a crab shot?
I don't know. You made that one up. Crowd is in, crowd.
Shots.
Yeah, we don't, just because we don't have consent for those people, and like we're trying to be respectful of people who may not want to be in photos for whatever reason those might be. There's been a lot of people who have told me about why they might not want to be in photos. Like, for example, they might have an ex stalking them. They might not be out at work. They don't want to be caught. Maybe being a furry would be detrimental to their profession or their social life or their family or any of that. They don't want to be caught on something that's going to go on like YouTube, TikTok, whatever. They don't want just random pictures of them at a furry con in the this is something most people don't think about, but it can be very detrimental to some folk if they are on media for whatever reason. So you need to have permission. That's generally the tenet we go on, is just don't shoot people without their permission, even in a crowd setting, as much as possible.
When you mentioned the Rangers, it sparked, I'm like, some of the bigger conventions here use a security team organization called Flare, which is very similar, but it's more security specific, not as like more first responder. But I like the Rangers better. That sounds cooler, to be honest.
We generally speaking don't want to create a perception of security. It kind of attracts a certain type of person. And most of the time we're dealing with things that can be easily de-escalated because they're usually caused by misunderstandings or miscommunications, or even just like people who are neurospicy who are overstimulated. Like these are like mental health issues, not security issues. So really, we want people who are going to be compassionate, who are going to be understanding, who are going to take the situation down from even needing security. But like I said, there is a security force that is present, that is part of the hotel, that we can and do liaise with on things that become more serious. But 99% of the time, our Rangers can take care of just about any of the problems that come up.
That's awesome.
I know Silver had an answer to this question, but how do you guys prepare your staff and volunteers for the weekend so everyone's on the same page? Now, Silver, I know you made a really cool video. Do you want to kind of elaborate on that?
Yeah, so the video was kind of a spitball idea.
Are you allowed to elaborate on it?
Yeah.
Okay.
The video was kind of a spitball idea when I was first getting oriented with the whole executive level stuff. I was trying to think of a way that I could, over the weekend, because you don't always have, as Miss said earlier, some people don't show up or something happens where they have to leave, or, things happen where people aren't where they're supposed to be or where they said they'd be. So, you kind of have to improvise. You kind of have to do what you need to do. And I realized earlier, and thankfully earlier than later, that I won't be able to be at the desk 24/7 to train new people who come in to fill those spots. So the video is kind of a spitball idea that I was like, okay, if I can just point people to this video, give them a general overview of what to do, then the volunteers that I have personally trained can manage those people basically just as well as I could, as long as they understand what needs to be done. Mm-hmm. So it worked out phenomenally, actually. And there's probably a couple different spots where we're going to see about implementing different types of videos. But as far as properly training people, like even with the video in place, that's kind of a general overview of what you can expect in specific departments, but it's not a hands-on training. It's not something that you can really rely on. So even beyond the video, I personally love to be able to sit with the volunteers that come to my desk and say, all right, so this is what you can expect. This is how you run this. This is what you can do with this. This is how you can do this, right? So that everyone's on the same page and everyone can kind of feel included and kind of get a general vibe. Like through a video, you can present a feeling and present an idea, but you can't really create an atmosphere. So when people come up to the desk and they're looking for training or they're looking to get some volunteer hours, I can say, okay, cool. I can give them the rundown, and I can also kind of set an environment where people can have fun. People can joke around a little bit and enjoy themselves and interact with people and, have some fun, laugh a little bit, smile here and there. Not all the time. You're not allowed to smile all the time. But but I love to be there, kind of set the environment and make sure that what was discussed during the video is still valid. And any situations that come up, I love to be there and able to help in case the volunteers don't know exactly what to do.
Yeah.
That kind of goes into like coordination and stuff, goes into my next question here is what kind of coordination is involved with scheduling events, panels, hosting a guest of honor, getting the Dealer's Den Artist Alley ready to go and set up?
Okay, so those are very different things. I'm going to tell you that right now because I've been involved in all of those. So
yeah, I'm going to let Mist answer this one.
Yeah, I've been involved in all of those, and including scheduling. Scheduling is kind of the Tetris puzzle from hell because it is not only extraordinarily difficult in terms of knowing and guessing, okay, how popular is this going to be? How many people are going to attend this? How much of space do they need? What layout do they need? What times can they deliver this? There's usually very specific times. You also have to do something avoiding what are called room flips. So you don't want to go from open layout chairs to and every time you do that, there's a time cost. So you want to do as few of those as you absolutely can. So when you're setting those up, when those things go and where they happen, you have to make sure that you are taking into account things like room flips, time between panels, all that jazz. So generally speaking, all of the panels are offered by the community. So we don't generally we're not running them. They're all run by people who have volunteered to run the panel, generally speaking. So if somebody if listening to this, who I want to see blah at whatever convention, run it because
do it
because that is how we get panels, is that people run those panels, especially things like meetups and whatnot. Now, generally speaking, at least at VF, it takes us at least 2 to 3 weeks to do the initial scheduling. And then you have to send all the approvals out and people will come back and tell you that they need to move, cancel, change their panel. They might want more time. They might want a different room type. They might have put in the wrong this, the wrong that. Maybe they put in the wrong day. Maybe they're not available anymore. Lots of things can happen. So then things start to shift and everything else. One of the biggest limitations is things like main theater availability. So everybody wants to deliver their stuff in main theater. Problem is main theater only has so many hours and the AV team and stuff require things like rehearsals for certain events and whatnot. So one panel, that's an hour and a half, might actually be more like 3 to 4 hours because you have to include a rehearsal. If it's, say, like a musical concert or something like that.
Oh.
Because they need to get their levels down. There needs to be a tech rehearsal. So that is a thing. So things for also dance comp, there needs to be a time where they're doing prelims. They're getting the music to the AV team. They're figuring out the order, et cetera, et cetera. So that's all that'll take an entire morning. It'll take 2 hours in a morning. So I can't schedule anything else in that time period for main theater because that eats up time in the main theater. So this is something to consider when you are running a panel is unless you are a performance or a major event, you're probably not going to get into main theater. It's just limitations of everybody wants to be in the main theater, literally everyone. So depending on what that looks like, kind of starts trickling down to everywhere else. Whatever large panel rooms are available, those will fill next. So secondary theater, third theater, those will fill next. And then basically we're just working with whatever panel rooms we can scrounge at that point.
Still there?
Yeah, sorry.
There you are. Okay.
Sorry,
did we lose you?
I'm still here. So I was thinking for a second. Brain fart. Yeah, so basically there's that. But for stuff like vendors, that is a different department. That is a different way of scheduling because of the needs of it. Whereas panels, you're just collecting a bunch of panels up until, in our case, about December, cutting that off, doing the scheduling, blah, blah, blah. You actually have to start the vendors in about June because you need to put out all of the portfolio requirements, costs, and basically times and stuff like that so that, number one, the artists can prepare a application, and number two, people know how much it's going to cost them so they can make an informed decision about where they want to vend. So they're going to then go through that. Then there's going to be an application period. Usually it's about 3 weeks in August-ish, September. It can sometimes be July, August, or August, September. It depends on where we are and who is running it. So there's a process there, and then there's a selection committee that's going to make the selections based on how many tables we have and what types of vendors we have applying and blah, blah, blah. There's a whole criteria for that. That could be its own thing all on its very own to talk about. But once that selection is made, then the Artist Alley opens after everybody's been informed if they were successful or not, so that if they weren't successful, now they can apply for the Artist Alley. Now, the vendors hall, like the dealer's den, for Vancoufur, is a selected juried selection. So you have to submit a portfolio, and then it has to be juried. So we're making a decision based on what kind of items you're offering, what type of vendor you are in terms of your products and whatnot. We don't want any one type of vendor to overwhelm the dealers. And we want a good mix for the attendees and stuff. And we want to make sure you're going to have good sales. So we don't want too many competitors. So we have to make decisions based on that. But once we kind of make those decisions and those go out, people have 30 days to pay for their tables. We kind of put all that together, blah, blah, blah. By the time we're getting to January, everything's pretty locked in and we're dealing with people falling out. So usually most dealers den artist alleys will have like at least 5 people cancel by the time you get to about January, February, they start falling off. So we have to quickly find some locals who are willing to upgrade to that, whatever had got canceled. And then there's that kind of that jigging. And then you actually go to con, and there's usually a schedule for the dealers that is pre-done, that's in all of the different like printed materials. Ideally, it's the same. There can be changes. There can be things that happened this year. For example, we ended up having to kill, we're a bit weird. We offer our vendors a lunch break, but the problem was the line was getting so long that it was going back to the lobby. Remember I mentioned about keeping the lobby clear for they can do business. So that was kind of an emergency to get that open and not interfere with the lobby or the restaurant, which is basically what they asked of us. So we ended up canceling it. Some people feel strongly that was a bad idea. Some people think it was a good idea. So it's kind of a mixed call. But the bottom of the line of that was just basically like we had to do it to keep the hotel happy. So it is a very different process than things like scheduling panels. It's a very different process. So many different schedules. You got volunteer schedules, you got panelist schedules, and then you got dealers den schedules, and then all these other things going on. Oh yeah. So many schedules. Does the dealers den, do the dealers in there or the Artist Alley ever switch out like each day? The Artist Alley does. The Artist Alley, Artist Alley, we have 3 days of Artist Alley currently. And basically you can reserve up to 2 of those days. So they do swap out. Okay. Whereas vendors get their full time. That's kind of part of it. And they pay a higher price for their tables. They also get a locked room where they can leave their setup for 3 days. Whereas the Artist Alley folk have to take down and set up every day. But they pay a lower price. That is interesting. That makes sense. Yeah. It's a lot of chaos.
Organized chaos. Yeah, that's con management. It's organized chaos.
Mm-hmm. One thing I've always wanted to know, just because I don't know how it starts, is how the hell do you bankroll a con? So being like, you're putting together your first con, where does that money come from? Does it come from like donations? Are you doing fundraising to put on this first con? Is it coming out of your own pockets type of a thing? And then of course you got to buy like equipment. So like all of those laptops, I've seen several conventions, they'll all have the same laptop. And I'm just like, damn, that's a lot of Dell laptops. Like that costed a lot of money. Where did that come from?
Kind of in bulk from a school district.
That's entirely accurate. Like a lot of our equipment is donated. I mean, it's not a secret that there are a lot of IT furries out there, and there are a lot of IT furry volunteers. And when their companies decide to clear out equipment, it's usually still pretty good. So they'll get the equipment that they were going to throw away and donate it to the con. So there is that. I mean, we here in BC are very collaborative. So we work together. Obviously, the BCAEA having 3 events, like we use the same equipment for 3 events. And there's another one here called Halloween, which also uses like equipment. And we kind of all share 2 lockers and share equipment. I mean, it causes some frustrations, but it's economically, it makes sense. So we do share that equipment. In terms of starting a new convention, it would very much depend on where you're coming from. Like if you're starting it like from scratch with no nonprofit, no angel investor, not somebody to front it or whatever, you're probably going to have to fundraise. You'll need to find out how much. Your two biggest expenses for a con are typically the hotel space, catering, because it's usually all one contract. And then you've got your AV equipment. So those two things are your biggest expenses. Once you've kind of got those two things figured out, then you're going to be looking for donations. You're going to be looking to see what kind of minimum equipment can you get away with. We're lucky in the sense that the BCAA has been around for a while and it's been well managed enough that it has the resources and money to kickstart a convention. Like that's kind of what the BCAA is there for, to promote furry events and to help them start up. So they're working towards giving those grants to help people get started.
That's a really good idea, actually. Yeah, America, take notice. That's really cool, though. It's good to know. What about the guest of honor? How do you source a guest of honor, first off?
Well, we actually do a lot of it through nomination. So when we do our attendee survey and our volunteer intake, part of it is asking who you think would be a good guest of honor and a good community spotlight, because we kind of want people to have a say in it. So we'll take all the suggestions that we are given, we'll narrow it down to like the top 5, and then we'll probably narrow it further from there after basically looking into them to make sure that they are going to be compatible with whatever it is that we're seeking that year for our guests of honor. We also, generally speaking, try to make sure they're not controversial. They haven't done something recently to be involved in the discourse of the day. And, generally speaking, try to make sure that they're in good standing with the community, more or less. In terms of the CS, we have to also make sure that they qualify, because our community spotlight does need to be from a certain geological kind of location around us, like from either BC, Alberta, Washington area. That's kind of where we focus. So we have to make sure that they qualify again. And then basically from there, if we're comfortable with that, sometimes we put it to a vote. Sometimes it's just a really clear winner. And then we'll see if they're interested and go down the list in terms of ranking priority.
That is interesting. So what are some of your most notable guest of honors you guys have had in the past?
Let me just quickly pull up my list. I mean, we've had...
Shooting from the hip.
Shooting from the hip in terms of like Ivy Comb is a pretty big deal here anyway.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm. Ivy Comb, Z the Raccoon. We had Annie Rain Dragon was our guest this year, who is a coffee and tea maker from Quebec. So for our Wonderland theme, that was absolutely perfect.
That's cool.
They did actually a tea making panel that was super cool.
I love it when furries make like their own coffee and then they brand it and stuff. We have some. I can't remember what the coffee is. I think we've only used it like once, but I bought it because it was cool and I wanted to support it. Super neato.
It was really cool, actually, and they make good stuff. Like, it was definitely a smart choice, I think, for this year.
Oh, it makes sense. Hands down.
I'm trying to think of some of the other ones off the top of my head. I mean, we had Matrices one year. If you guys know who Matrices is, kind of
everyone knows Matrices.
Everybody do. So we had Matrices. Matrices is lovely. Absolutely a highlight. We've had a lot of people, like, because we've been around for a while. I know we had Duke one year, Duke the Dancing Dog, long time ago. I'm trying to, I think that was 2017. Yeah, 2017. Yeah.
I'm on the Vancoufur Wikifur page.
I was just going to say, we could probably just go to the Wikifur and find this information.
I know I have a list somewhere. I just don't know where it's gotten off to at the moment. But yeah, you can go to the Wikifur. You can look at the different guests. Like I said, Z and Ivy Comb are probably two of the biggest. We had Annie last year, and like some of our highlights in terms of our community spotlights, like Chi, who's our art director, who's also a animator and background painter for various features such as the My Little Pony movie, and did work on Carmen Sandiego and all kinds of other cartoons.
Oh wow!
She does fantastic work.
And now a brief musical interlude of Space Bear and the Sparker Shop Quartet.
Where in the world is Carmen Sandiego?
We had Nitro Shep, who's a local volunteer who built what are called our head trees for our fursuit lounge and operates them for us. They're an amazing unit that basically it's a blow drying unit where you can hang multiple heads and it forces air through them to dry them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So other people have seen them and have freaked out over how cool they are. And he makes them and runs them. And he has been one of those quiet, unsung volunteers, but could not function without him, kind of situation. So we had him as a CS one year. We had Mage Mechatronics this year, who is one of our theme volunteers and is also chairing the first year of Tales, but has been a sort of superstar volunteer for like the last 3 years. So we try to highlight local talent, essentially.
I think that's important.
I mean,
anyone can really just bring on like the most popular furries, but I think what's really built a community is the community itself, and focusing on locals is a really smart move.
What part of the convention do you guys like personally pay attention to the most? Maybe to make this interesting, let's say outside of your usual duties, like what do you pay attention to the most?
Oh, that's a hard question.
I know.
That is a bit of a hard question, but I mean, I do a lot of stuff out of scope, so it's also like there's a lot.
Yeah, well,
I pay a lot of attention to deadlines. I would say, like, I'm somewhat neurotic, so if I think that there is something that is not happening, no matter what the department, I will basically start doing what I call biting and dump into somebody's DMs and be like, hey, where's the thing? Where's the thing? Where's the thing? Partially because it can, like 90% of it is tied into marketing in the sense of like, we have to advertise for something and, I need enough time to do that work. And if somebody doesn't get me that stuff, I notice those deadlines are happening, and they happen for the chair and stuff too. And I will bite them too. I am fearless in my biting. I will bite the chair. I will bite the vice chairs. I'll be like, hey, you have not set a meeting. Set a meeting. Like I'll do stuff like that. In terms of like other stuff, I mean, I am very, how shall we say, open and proud of the work I do with the convention, even at my day job. And I have used a lot of what I've learned in my day job for the con. So I will pay attention to all kinds of weird stuff, like volunteer training is something I'm looking at in terms of just generally growing volunteer forces. I was looking at taking a course in volunteer management. Stuff like that. I mean, that's not technically a marketing thing, so technically that's out of my scope.
Silver, what about you?
Yeah. You've been quiet.
I like listening. That's
same. It's the same thing I like to do.
I think outside of the general scope of my responsibilities in attendee services, I do it much to my own detriment. Probably the same as Myst. I like to bounce between different departments. I like to make sure everything's running smoothly, and if it's not, lend a hand. I love once my department closes up, I like to, I'll go up to the party floor and make sure there's enough security up there. There's enough people checking IDs and badges. There's, nothing's going on in the halls that needs to be remedied. There's mostly like security and operations.
There's no pizza outside anyone's door.
I like to help with the interaction, like the positions where attendees and staff interact directly. I like to be there because I like to put a positive face on long lines, panels not opening on time, things needing changed last minute. I like to be there to help that go through and to keep people, in the know and help them understand what happens. I find a little bit of preventative maintenance goes a really long way as far as helping maintain. So I feel like that's a super important part. So I like to spend any extra time doing that. As far as convention, like myself enjoying the convention, I personally I like to take a quick walk through the dealer's den just to kind of see what's out there. But my personal energy booster is walking through the lobby sometimes and just seeing, like we were talking about, just random people, like people who aren't in the fandom coming into the hotel. I love watching people like that walk into the lobby. And I love seeing the looks on their faces. I love seeing them pointing and getting all excited about the crazy walking animals that are all in the lobby.
It's one of them fuzzies.
Yep, that and I love the raves as well.
Yeah,
we do have some banger DJs. I will definitely.
I miss con raves so much. But I did like your answer about putting a positive face on it. I know for a lot of people, having good staff will make or break a con. Like Denver, I know the last couple of years, they've been in hot water because you have staff who's going around shutting down room parties and just kind of putting a whole negative vibe or a dampener on the whole con, And so having a positive face and a positive staff can really make or break the overall vibe of a convention,
100%. I think one of my most favorite accomplishments in helping run a convention was last year at Vancoufur. There was a point where the line for the After Dark Bazaar was excessively long. And, like people were waiting in line for 3 to 4 hours trying to get in.
Wow.
And it was probably one of my greatest accomplishments as far as like PR goes. There was one point where I had fursuiters with squeakers doing tongue twisters. I had the majority of the line laughing at one point. Like it was so much fun just interacting with people and putting a positive spin on it.
That's a really good way to do it.
It was so much fun. And honestly, it's also probably one of the most fulfilling sides of things too, especially when you're running and putting out fires and helping different departments run. People notice the effort that you put in, right? And if you maintain that kind of a positive outlook the entire time, this year it was so sweet. There was a lady who stopped at the Attendee Services desk to give me a $20 Starbucks gift card because she saw the effort that I was putting in and said, "You're making this con for a lot of people." And I was like, it's not just me, I swear. But she came up and gave me a gift card, and it was one of the sweetest and most fulfilling things that I've ever had happen to me. Just someone showing the appreciation for what you do out of their own will. Like, I'm not asking for recognition or anything like that. It's just it's so amazing when people recognize it and they want to give something back, Well,
it always feels good.
Yeah.
That's it's something you don't see very often, but when it does happen, it's the world. Like,
for sure.
That's so, that kind of makes me, I'm super sensitive, like emotionally sometimes. So I'm just kind of like thinking like, oh, that's so beautiful.
It really was. It was so sweet.
Yeah. It's so cool.
That's great.
It's so neat.
I love that.
So what's a part of the convention that attendees rarely think about, but is critical to everything running smoothly?
I mean, my instant answer is ops, but I'm curious to see what Myst says.
I mean, actually, ops is one of them for sure. Most people don't really understand how critical operations is to keeping everything running smoothly. But I'd also say general volunteers, because there is, like, we get certain people in, but we still need those extra hands, especially those willing to work late nights, because basically there's a thing that happens is that basically 6:30 rolls around and everybody disappears. It leaves a skeleton crew of maybe like 15 people to run the con for the next 12 hours. And that includes leadership. So like basically the con's chair, vice chairs, executives, and like a handful of dedicated rangers and ops people, and maybe another small handful of badge checkers and line wranglers. Without those people, it would be insane. But that is definitely where like the most issues occur and where like ops and the general volunteers become critical, especially in the evening.
Mm-hmm.
Is it because it's like dinner time and people are getting ready for like events happening in the evening?
It's a combination of dinner. People want to go to party floor. People want to go to the rave. People want to go to after dark panels. Like they want to go to the after dark bazaar. So they all want to go lewd themselves up and they're done with volunteering for the day. They volunteered in the earlier part of the day. They've got their hours. They're now going to go enjoy their con.
Okay, I mean, that was another question I kind of had is like, I don't know if you guys really get to enjoy the con from like an attendee's perspective, but the volunteers still have that opportunity, correct?
Regular volunteers, yes. Leadership, less so.
Yeah.
It's your job. It's your job to run the convention.
Yeah, it's your job to run the convention. If I want to enjoy a convention, I go to one I do not staff.
Yeah.
It's just too much that needs to be done that we can't really, like, we might be able to go do a quick tour through the dealer's den. We might be able to, like, I deliver some panels. I might be able to join one panel if I'm lucky. If something isn't on fire at the moment, when that panel happens, like I do VTubing. So I like to go to the VTuber meetups. I didn't make it this year. Oh, well, because I was busy wrangling the parade. Like, like you just kind of get sucked into other things and you're busy, but it's a different kind of enjoyment. I mean, I enjoy running the con. And I mean, like Silver was talking about the person who gave them a Starbucks card. For me, my motivation is actually beyond that. I have had very numerous people come and tell me that they are still alive because of the con, that we literally saved their lives. And I'm not talking one or two. I'm talking like, it's starting to become double digits. over the years that I have staffed. And I've staffed for like 8-ish years at this specific convention. I staffed other conventions prior, but we're only talking specifically about Vancouver right now. But like the fact that there are people that are still alive today and that are thriving now because of the con and the connections and the friendships that they made, that's what drives me. That's what makes Vancouver so damn special to me, is that it literally saves people's lives and makes them better.
That almost makes me want to cry.
It makes putting in those extreme hours very worth it.
Yes.
Yeah. It's just a very reward. So I guess to kind of put it this way, it's its own kind of experience that is just as equally as rewarding as if you were an attendee. Would I be correct in saying that?
For the right personality, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say almost more so, depending on what you're looking for out of a convention.
Mm-hmm.
See, when I go to a convention, I like to volunteer because for me, volunteering is very fulfilling. It's allowing me to help, and it gives me almost like a rush of joy to do it. And so when I like to go to cons, of course, my husband wants to hang out and do all the things. I have the most fun volunteering and doing stuff for others than I do just enjoying the con itself. I'm not sure why, but I just genuinely love it. So like when I last volunteered, I'm like, I can work as many hours as you really want me to. I genuinely don't mind doing it. And they're like, but we still want you to enjoy the con. And I'm like, but this is me enjoying the con.
We have a few volunteers like that. We have a few volunteers that they come to work. That is what they come to do. They wouldn't even know what to do with themselves if they weren't working.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what I need to start doing.
If you're not careful, you'll end up in an executive position.
Yeah.
I was gonna say when I go to a con, I don't do many panels or anything. A lot of what I go to a con for is to see friends, and I'll go to room parties, or we'll just be hanging out in our room. We'll check out the dealer's den and stuff. We'll go to the raves. But for the most part, I'm hidden away in a room somewhere hanging out with people I know from the internet or IRL, or it feels like I'm just hanging out with people and not necessarily at a con sometimes, you know? So maybe that's what I need to do. Maybe I'll enjoy the con more that way.
I mean, you can always start by just trying it out. Like try just volunteer to do some badge checking or something for a few hours. See how you feel about it. Also, finding the right spot is really important. Like one of the things I definitely try to do is identify a volunteer's like interests, goals, what they kind of want to get out of volunteering, and try to match them up with a department that's going to naturally feed their interests and ambitions so that they're feeling way more rewarded.
Yeah. I've thought about that at a couple cons. It's like I've seen the AV crews, and I have a background in theater production, right, running AV systems, and so I've always been like, well, it'd be kind of cool if I could get on a volunteer team for that, but oh well, you know, I didn't really think much more than that.
Not hard to do.
For me,
got AV qualifications? Let's talk.
My skill set's kind of like what I do now, which is podcasting and talking with people and hearing their stories. And so generally, I'm naturally someone who likes to carry a conversation. So my skill set is panels and events. So, you know, I love talking with all the different panelists. I love talking to people that go to it, helping them figure out where to go. Like that's something that comes completely natural to me. And that is like my environment altogether.
That feels like Silver's area.
More the forefront of
info desk or attendee services or something like that.
Yeah, I think it's just, I just like being with the people. It's so interesting because you get to meet so many cool people in general. You get to meet all the different con goers. You get to meet some of the, puppy furs that you've never met before or you've only heard of. Mm-hmm. You get to know like the staff really well, and the staff is really cool too. It's just like a unique position to be in, and I love it. So whenever it comes up, I always say volunteer because you always have a really unique experience that comes from it. And you might actually find that you really do love doing it.
Yeah. And it's what a lot of people don't really think about as far as volunteering. They look at volunteering as, a way to help out or a way to give back to the convention, but they don't realize that you'll meet people that are some of the coolest people that you will ever meet.
Yeah.
You have the opportunity to host something that, like Myst said, could save lives. You have the opportunity to, it's part of, I don't know, there's something about helping run something bigger that just is so fulfilling in and of itself. I don't know, it's something that I would recommend that everyone at least give a good heartfelt attempt at.
You think of it like running a convention like a machine, right? You get to be a part of that machine that helps it run like successfully. And that's a really cool feeling to be a part of.
I think it's more like a team in the sense of like, it does not run like a machine. It is not precision, but it is a team of people doing something bigger than themselves. It is making something happen, which is an incredible feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that explanation better. You said like a machine, and I immediately pictured.
Well, I wasn't thinking like it computes perfectly or
like,
anything.
We need to run like a well-oiled machine. I'm like, shut up.
That is not how con runs.
You've been on vacation for 4 weeks. What are you talking about?
I guess you could say like the thing that I think of is like you're like a cog and like the brainstorming or like the process of how everything works. I don't know. For me,
it's better
thought
to think of it like a team sport, like a team sport.
Yeah.
You're on a team, and the team is doing a thing together, and you're part of that team, and that is you're making this event happen.
You all get to share in the success, right?
Yes, absolutely. You get to share in the success. It happened because you were a part of it, not because you were a cog in a wheel, but because you brought your unique self to the table and you succeeded, helped us succeed as a whole.
So that kind of goes into one of the other questions is, what is something you wish attendees understood that would make your life 10 times easier?
Oh, there are so many.
Besides volunteering.
No, there are more than that. I mean, the one thing I had to stress this year was that we are all volunteers as well. We're not paid to do this. So a lot of people who are, especially general volunteers and stuff, I mean, they've received some training, but they're not professionals. They are nerds just like you who are dedicating their time to help this happen. So some of them, especially the more neurospicy ones, may not quite know where their best role is at, and they may not be their best selves in the moment when it's super stressful, and yelling at them isn't going to help. No. So we need everybody to respect that these are volunteer organizations and that things do not go according to plan. And we are doing the very best we can to adapt as fast as we can within what we can do. Like, obviously, if there's a lot of people, like this year, we had a ton of people. It wasn't like we could magically get more rooms in terms of like being able to offer bigger panel rooms for popular panels that we didn't know were going to be popular and in the moment. We can't do that. So you have to understand that we are limited in what we can do, especially at con, to fix major issues. And you're just going to have to kind of adapt. The other thing I would really like people to do is read. We have a website. We have policies. Please.
Oh my God.
Read them. Please, for the love of God, read the website, please. Oh my God, the amount of times I need to like tap the sign. Read the website. For the love of God. Oh my God, please read the damn website. And social media, please read that too. And Discord, please read that too. Just read some stuff, okay?
A lot of questions will be answered if you just read. It makes it so much easier.
Read the comments,
like
read the flyer,
the
read the website, please read.
I know you don't want to read the terms and services, but it's important that you do.
Exactly.
It will answer every question you have.
It's the same thing with regular attendees and especially parents. Oh my God. Furry fandom as cons are exploding with families now, especially the general ones. Like, oh my God, there's tons of families. Kids are into furry. The parents have no idea. They're total normies. They don't know how to con. They don't bother to read anything about con. So they don't tell their children anything about what they need to do or whatever. Or their children are trying to tell them and they're not listening. You know, like it's just like, oh my God, can you just read the website? Please, you're 40. Please read the website. Oh my God.
I like reading the policies. I'm just like a boring person. I'm just like, ooh, let's see all the like the abouts and the policies and stuff.
I mean, it's also like, we send out newsletters. We try to communicate so hard, but you got to do your part in actually reading those communications, please.
Yeah.
Because we do not communicate for the shits and giggles. We're communicating because there's important information you need to know, like deadlines for things or booking dates or openings for things or all this stuff. Like, we're not telling you this for our health, guys. We're telling you this because this is important shit for you, okay? That is something I definitely wish people did that would make my life a bajillion times easier, is just read, understand, take to heart, do the things by the deadlines, please. We have them for a reason.
Exactly.
It just makes our life so much easier if people can actually do the things without us pulling teeth. And also if we don't have to constantly explain it over and over and over and over and over and over and over again because nobody can be bothered to read.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of my pet peeves.
Just one.
Just one.
Oh, there's others, but I'm just gonna leave that alone.
Silver, do you have anything to add to that?
I think that most attendees, a lot of what Mist said, for sure. A lot of what Mist said. Just to add on to it, though, I think one of the things that attendees don't really realize is we as staff can help run the convention, but they're the ones that make the convention. So if they don't come with an expectation to enjoy themselves, or if they show up and only want to talk with a specific person, and if anybody else gets in their way, then they get upset. I feel like a lot of attendees don't understand that the point of a convention is to experience your weirdness in an area where you're not going to be judged for being as weird. Like, the whole point of it is to be there, enjoy yourself, and have fun. And if people come to a convention with that in mind, they're going to have a significantly better time than someone who just came because they wanted to see the After Dark, or they just came because, their friend invited them. You're going to have such a better time at a convention if you show up expecting to have fun. And that's if people understood that and took that to heart, I guarantee that everyone would have such a great time.
I will also bring up one other thing that I just thought of that I think would be, especially given some of the growth and stuff that we're experiencing and the problems with staffing in the evening and stuff, is that I will say this to any listeners. Look, please party responsibly. Mm-hmm. That means do not overdose on all the substances that you can get your hands on, please.
Please know your limits.
Please know your limit.
Don't make us cut you out of the fursuit.
Well, not just in the fursuit. Like, we have had people with fursuits. He says again, yes, please know your limits in suit, in costume. Please drink water, drink Gatorade, keep your salt content high enough that you're not going to pass out from dehydration, please. But also when you're up on the party floor and you're partying, know your limit on alcohol, know your limit on weed, know your limits. If you are going to imbue any substance, don't just take everything you can get your hands on and then barf on our people, please. We actually had a problem with this at this past Vancoufur, where we had a lot of people overindulging and throwing up in various places in the hotel. And then the volunteers have to clean it up because we don't want to trouble the hotel in the middle of the night too, because there's nobody, there's not as many people on staff. So we'll call them in the morning, but we have to clean it up so that there's no stain, because we have to keep the relationship with the hotel positive. So generally speaking, that is kind of uncool. And you're not going to have a good time either, because you might be so greened out that we have to send you over to the hospital. So we're not having a good time. Nobody's having a good time. We had to call the hospital. There's going to be an ambulance. We don't want ambulances. So please party responsibly. Know your limits. Party within it. Don't overdrink. Don't overindulge. Try to just maintain a safe level for you of intoxication, shall we say. We do not want people constantly fighting, barfing, needing to go to the hospital because we're not responsible with how they drank and partook.
Yeah, I've seen that happen too many times.
What's the most unexpected challenge you've had to deal with while running a con?
To follow that up, what is something you've learned the hard way? I'd like to answer both of those at the same time if we can.
Yeah.
Oh, Silver, do you want to go first? I'll go after.
Yeah, I can take that one. Okay, so we'll
start with it in any order.
Actually, I think they tie in very closely together. For me, I think the thing I had to learn the hard way was pace myself, because especially this last Vancoufur, I went beyond my capabilities a little bit too long and ended up needing a little bit of assistance as far as keeping myself together for a little bit. So that learning to lean on the volunteers, not to push myself to the limits, make sure I get some good sleep, make sure I have food of some sort in my body. I'm very much if I can do it, I want to do it kind of person. So this year especially, I learned I need to pace myself. I need to delegate. I need to make sure that I'm not overdoing it on my own. And probably the most unexpected challenge was, I'm going to say, letting go. It's very easy for someone who's in an executive position to want their hands on everything. They want to make sure it's done right. They want to make sure, everybody knows what they're doing. Everybody does this thing in the right way and make sure everything's, running smoothly, so that, for lack of a better term, that to make sure the machine and the system work. It was probably one of the most unexpected lessons and challenges that I had to learn was, once people get the general idea, hands off. You don't have to micromanage people. You don't have to, constantly be a presence. Once you have people who are competent and trained and know how to handle things, hands off. Let people do what they need to do, you know? And that was probably one of the most unexpected lessons that I learned this year.
I like that. Silver, hi, Silver.
Mist.
Do you have anything to add?
I would say that I've had some other experience along similar lines in the sense of like, you can't be everywhere at once, and that there will be things you have to just accept, even though you don't want to, especially as a con runner, that there will be areas that struggle any given year due to unforeseen issues. Things are going to fall apart and not perform the way that you had hoped, even if you've tried really hard to make sure that those departments are set up for success. Unexpected things happen. For example, this year, our info desk lead came down with pneumonia and basically went down in the second day of con. So we didn't have a lead or anybody any second that could have taken over the table. So we had a bunch of basically new volunteers just trying to figure it out from the instruction manual. And they didn't always do the best. And we did get some complaints because they were stressed out and they kind of weren't maybe as good as they would have been if the lead had been there. So stuff happens and you kind of just got to keep rolling. It's like, okay, well, that happened. Let's continue. How can we patch this hole in this boat and keep sailing? You have to learn a lot of that. And sometimes you're going to make decisions that are unpopular and you kind of have to deal with that. When I was chair, I made some decisions that did blow back at me because I didn't completely understand some stuff. I was a first-year chair and I didn't understand some changes were going to be too much for some people to handle, and I got screamed at a lot for it. But I don't think that the changes were wrong. I just think that they might have been too fast in like the things I was trying to do and people couldn't kind of adjust. This happens especially if you've got a lot of long-term volunteers that are used to things working in particular ways and you're trying to innovate or change things to address particular issues. There can be blowback from that. I've learned a lot about just managing people from the con, like in terms of how to work with other humans. There's a reason my Sona is a space cat. Sometimes I feel a little alien when it comes to people. So
we got the space cat and the space bear in the same room.
Yay! We're both space people.
Basically trying to, people is a little alien to me at times, and like predicting people's behaviors is also sometimes something I'm not 100% good at doing. So I have definitely had to learn a lot of that on the fly and how to handle explosive emotion and overstimulation and freaking out for all variety of reasons on the fly. That is something that I've definitely had to learn the hard way and take some knocks over it. I've had to eat crow over decisions I've made because they didn't pan out the way I thought they would. Them's the breaks.
Yeah.
It happens.
It does. Did I answer that question relatively fully?
Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I was just kind of pondering what she said. Some of the things you said actually do flow quite well into my next question. What's something that has improved over the years that you're proud of?
I think our volunteer retention has improved a lot. We've attracted a lot of very skilled volunteers, for which I am incredibly grateful. And I think that is something I've worked on since probably 2020 to basically improve our volunteer reputation, to improve our volunteering programs, to improve retention, and generally attract more people to volunteering. And not just for Vancoufur, but other BCAEA events and activities, and kind of grow the reputation of Vancoufur as like a world-class convention that is friendly and generally easy to attend. And I think that that has been pretty successful in general. We have definitely increased our volunteer force, although we still could definitely use more volunteers. We always can use more volunteers, but we're doing better now. We've turned that reputation around, thankfully, I think, for the most part. And that's something I'm proud of, is kind of changing that reputation to being more of something where people are excited to be a part of it, as opposed to, being warned to stay away.
Yeah. Silver, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think for me, mine's a pretty quick answer to this one. I think my people skills have improved a significant amount. There's a reason that my Sona's a snap too. I like to isolate a lot. I like to, be quiet. I like to watch and listen and observe. But there's a lot of joy to be found in interacting with people and helping people, fix whatever problems they might have. And to me, my ability to, even talking on this podcast is not something that I would have ever considered doing a couple of years back. So that has been a huge improvement in, I think, my character overall that I'm quite proud of.
That's good to hear. I'm glad it's helped you. I know this, I mean, it's kind of different, but I know this podcast has definitely helped me branch out in a similar way and become more comfortable in myself.
How do you measure whether a convention is successful or not?
I would imagine different cons may have different measurements, but we generally look at
the metric system. I'm just kidding.
We look at attendance. We look at attendance. We look at our profitability, obviously, because if we don't make a profit, we can't keep doing this. And we also, I think, look at kind of like what happened at con in terms of like sort of major incidents. The less amount of major incidents and medical calls we can get away with is usually a determiner of, were we successful? Did everybody party safely? Okay, awesome. This year, actually, surprisingly, despite the 800-person growth, we actually had very little in the way of any kind of major issues. I think we only had like a couple of medical issues, and that was it, which is amazing. That's what you want, is you do not want like any police incidents. You do not want any fire incidents. You don't want any of that. We didn't have any of that. So that's very successful with 800 plus extra people that we were not anticipating. Then yes, that is amazing. We grew by quite a lot. We're now over 3,069.
Wow.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Nice. Yeah. And we're profitable. So that means we can run again. So we're going again. And, you know, that's kind of how we measure it. And then we're going to celebrate that in terms of our volunteers and who knocked it out of the park and recognize the hard work that they've done. And, you know, generally speaking, we do that before we start all over again.
I think that's a very interesting way. You said the medical calls. That's a really interesting way to kind of gauge it. I mean, it makes perfect sense, but I love that.
That's part of how we keep people safe.
Yeah.
Safe but fun.
You can be fun while still being safe.
Yep, exactly.
We prefer that, honestly. Please party safely.
So what sticks with you guys after the convention is over and you kind of can breathe for a minute? What keeps coming back to you? I know, Myst, you were talking about how you've had people come up to you and tell you that the con has saved their life. Is there anything else that sticks with you, or is that primarily it?
I mean, I have the privilege of being able to read all of the feedback surveys and everything. So I definitely see both the criticisms and the compliments. I also tend to end up sitting on the stage when there's a hiss and scritch at the end of the con. So, you know, I try
what's a hiss and scritch?
A hiss and scritch is, or sometimes they call them hiss and pet. Sometimes they call them just feedback panel, like con feedback, where basically the executive's leadership set up on a stage and the people can come and talk at a microphone to tell them about the good experiences, which are the scritches, and the bad experiences, which are hisses. That lets us know in person, like how they could see things change. Now, sometimes they obviously with any kind of feedback, sometimes it's useful, sometimes it isn't. Sometimes it's things we can do stuff about, sometimes it isn't. Sometimes there's very good ideas. Sometimes there's stuff that we've already tried and didn't work. So it's kind of one of those situations where people give us a lot of feedback. And one of the things I do after con is start basically sifting through the feedback, sifting through social media, looking at how did everybody perceive their experience and what things did I miss that might have shaped their experience? Or, you know, is there things we could change? Is there things we need to look at? Like going into our next planning cycle, I will take these, summarize them, and then try to give them to the chair and also discuss them within my department and stuff, because as media and communications, we're obviously always trying to find ways to talk more effectively to people and connect with people a little more intimately in terms of like getting their feedback and whatnot, if there's a problem or something happened or whatever. So because there are little things that happen that aren't necessarily big showstoppers, but like this year, there was a lot of little complaints. I can basically summarize them into 3 buckets, which we are taking our steps to addressing all of the stuff into buckets, but they're not big. They're not big. They're not unsurmountable. They're just tweaks mostly that have to be kind of implemented and experimented with a little bit.
Well, that's always good to hear.
So I guess the thing I'm always taking away is, what can we do better? What should we be focusing on next year?
That's a good thing to take away. So it helps stimulate the growth of the convention in the first place, you know?
Yeah. It also just helps us continue to improve. Like we have to continue to improve. We want to continue to innovate and be kind of a leader in our space if we can.
VF specifically has also had a lot of reviews about being like an outstanding convention in and of itself. I know a lot of people that I've talked to. I've been to like Anthrocon, MFF. I plan on going to FWA again this year. I've heard a lot of people who have been to Vancouver. They much prefer it over the larger conventions, which honestly is quite a testament.
Yeah. Well, I mean, larger conventions can be fun, but I've always found myself at home at the small ones. Cool. It's just so much more personable. Did you say something, Space?
Oh, I was looking at the vendors for this last con that you guys just did, and some of them are really cool, like the telekinetic art.
Oh, yes. Telekinetic is very talented.
Yeah, I'm looking at their site. I'm like, damn, I would buy all of that.
They had 2 absolutely spectacular pieces in our charity auction that I was like, One was actually a Jabberwocky, which was absolutely the coolest thing I'd ever seen.
There's just one vendor that almost feels like it doesn't belong. Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
Oh, I think I see it.
The Oddball Garlic Company.
Okay, there's a story there. There's a story.
Yeah, what is that about? Of all the vendors on there, I'm like, what?
Okay, so here's the story. It's actually kind of heartwarming because it is actually a very heartwarming little story. So Big Bison is the person who runs Oddball, and Big Bison has a son named Blue Fulf, I think it is. And Blue is a young man with a brain injury. And Big Bison has been bringing their son to VF for several years and was volunteering with us for those years. We had a year where basically they own a organic garlic farm here in BC, in Quesnel, and does garlic sauces, and offered to do a custom garlic sauce for VF for one of our sponsor gifts one year.
Oh,
so
that's cool.
We thought that was absolutely really cool because, you know, we're supporting local business. They're a volunteer. They have a son who participates and volunteers and does stuff with us. So basically, we allowed him to sell his garlic. He made Protogen fuel for us. And Protogen fuel was absolutely a runaway hit. They let him sell at the Infodesk table that year because he was working Infodesk, and it was a runaway hit. So fast forward a couple of years, and his son is begging him to apply for the dealer's den and really wants him to be in the dealer's den. So we're like, okay, you're a volunteer. We know your story. We'll give you a half table. And then it ended up that the person that they were half tabling with dropped out. So we just gave them the full table. But the point is that they're part of the community. I know that seems weird, but they actually are part of the community, and they are a local business, and they do make furry specific garlic sauces that everyone here is absolutely loves. When they heard that Oddball Garlic was going to be here, they lost their minds.
That's so cool, though.
I'm looking at their stuff. Their stuff looks good.
It is. It's really good. Like their honey garlic is amazing.
Wow. See, that's something that I wouldn't have never guessed that unless I had asked that question right then and there. That's really cool.
I might have gotten the son's name wrong. I know I think it's Blue Fulf. I think it's something like that, but I'm sorry. I got it wrong.
Well, I'll definitely put
Slushy Fulf. Sorry, it was Slushy Fulf. I did get it wrong. It's Slushy Fulf. That is the name of the son. Slushy Fulf.
Good recovery.
And Slushy Fulf is very verbal on our social and always asks people if they're coming to Vancouver.
That's special.
Okay, nice.
That's heartwarming.
Yes, it is very. And the thing is like Big Bison is not the only person that I've seen with this. There was a fellow who was a voice actor. I'm not going to say who he was, but he had a son also who was autistic and into furry and crazy into furry. And he brought his son to the convention, and we tried really hard to help make that convention special, but the kid did get overstimulated and unfortunately had to leave early, but he actually did some panels for us on specifically breaking into voice acting and voiceover. So that was really fun. And also participated in doing some voice acting for us for our opening and closing ceremonies, did like some narrator work. They were lovely. And there's other stories of that. We've had people that have brought their kids who have like cancer, and this is kind of a thing for them, and we try to make those special. And there's all kinds of interesting little situations you run into that create interesting stories. And if you kind of don't know the deep lore, it can seem weird, but as soon as you kind of learn about more of the connections, then it makes sense.
Yeah, interesting.
That is really special. That's super cool. God, I just want to go to this convention now.
You know, right? I
didn't get my passport.
Right. No, I'm looking up. I'm not kidding. I'm looking at flights to Vancouver. See how much.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure interviewing both of you. One of the things we like to do when we're asking guest questions is kind of something that specializes or is specific to what they do. What kind of advice could they give to others? So in this particular case, if someone wanted to start their own furry convention, what are the first steps you would recommend?
I mean, my usual response to this, and I have been asked this a few times because people are like, I want to chair a convention. What should I do? Volunteer and work in as many different areas as you can handle. Like, do one whole year and do pre-con work, at-con work, and post-con work. You need to do all those things as a chair. Because ideally, as a chair, you have an idea of every single department's responsibilities in at least a vague sense. This is a story about me being my first chair. I did not understand the fursuit lounge. And as a result, I did not do a very good job of making sure that it ran properly. And there was an incident and there was another incident. And then I had to basically have the rangers stay on top of the fursuit lounge because I made a mistake because I didn't know that area well enough. I understand it now, obviously, but there is a steep learning curve. But the more volunteering you do and the more sort of systems you're exposed to give you a really strong idea of how you can organize and how you might want to organize your people. And the other thing you need to do is network, because like I said before, con running is a team sport. You need a team to start a convention. You need people to run registration. You need people to do volunteering. You need to run HR. You need con store. You need vendors. You need, operations. You need whatever you're doing where you have rangers, you need all these different IT. You need fursuit lounge. You need attendee services if you want to have that. Usually there's at least an info desk. You can take it down to a very small, but you definitely want to start small. Don't try to run a 1,000-person con as your first thing. Try to run something small. Start with running 1-day events and then move from that to 2-day events. And you will slowly learn. You need to know about hotels and about contracts and about room nights and about catering budgets and how to do food math. There's a lot of skills you need to know before you even think about sticking your finger in that pool. You're also going to need to raise funds. If you don't personally have, the $10,000, $15,000 to start up, you're going to have to do that. You're going to have to worry. You have to figure out your insurance. You have to do all kinds of other contracty. There's a lot of bureaucracy that goes into a con on our end, on the con chair end. And a lot of people think they have this weird perception that the con chair just gets to kind of go around, glad hand all the guests and be treated to dinners and stuff. No. You are on fire more than anyone else. If you are the con chair, literally everything, you are the one who has to be making sure that everything is going. You and your vice chairs. If you have only one vice chair, that's great. You need at least one, but we have two for a reason because they need to be able to switch off to do things. So you need a team. You need to know how to work with the team. You need to be able to organize with the team. You also need to be able to deal with a lot of personality types. You're always going to be dealing with conflicts. People are going to want to do their own things and whatnot. You have to balance you have to be very good interpersonally. You have to be able to be fair. You have to be able to also be the bad guy sometimes without ruining relationships. You're learning a lot about management from a high level at the chair position. And it's really best to start gradually going up that chain. Start by working in a department, working up to a lead, be a lead for that, change departments, start in the bottom again, go to a lead, do this a couple of times. And then, you can kind of learn what you need to expect out of people and what kind of qualifications and stuff they should have when they're doing these jobs. What kind of personalities do you want doing this job? Because there's just some people who can't handle it. We had a general volunteer this year who thought they could handle line wrangling, but they absolutely couldn't. Absolutely could not handle line wrangling. So I had to make a quick split kind of decision to okay, you can't handle this level of stimulation. You're going with con care now. You can go con care people. Yeah. And that was the absolute right call for them. And I caught them later and I checked up with them and I made sure hey, are you doing better in con care? Is that more your speed? It's yes, I'm sorry you had to see me that way. And I'm no, don't worry about it. It is overwhelming and that is completely valid. And I'm glad that you're happy in con care. Now you kind of know where your limits are. There's definitely a lot of that kind of work. You're doing a lot of emotional labor. You're doing a lot of decision making. And you need to understand the scope of the decisions that you are making as a chair. It is not just you. It is affecting everyone under you. And a bad call can tank things real fast. You also have to stay very reputationally aware. In this day and age of social media, you do not want to screw around with your reputation.
Because it can flip like an instant.
Absolutely. And then it is extremely hard to salvage.
Yeah. Especially with how trigger happy furries are on the bewares.
Mm-hmm.
We try to avoid that at all costs with our show. Because reputation is everything.
Absolutely. And in this community, it is extremely important. So like if you want to be a con chair, you better make sure that you keep yourself very reputationally clean. Like you're not screwing around and doing questionable things. You don't want to do any of that. And you have to maintain that for years. So, you know, you really have to think about it. A lot of people walk into this stuff not understanding how much, like, and then you have to also decide, do I want to do this as a commercial venture or do I want to do this as a nonprofit? Because then you might have to incorporate a nonprofit, which is a completely different set of interesting paperwork that you have to do depending on where you are. Like, obviously, in the States, it's quite different than in BC or even in Alberta or Ontario. So you have to know for your area what kind of options are what you want to take. Is like if you want to take the commercial route, if you want to pay the taxes, if you have to do all that business paperwork, or if you want to do the nonprofit paperwork and figure that all out. So there's a lot more to it. And it's always going to be a team of people that have to do this thing. It is easy to go, hey, I want to start this thing, but it's really hard if you don't have the connections and you don't have the knowledge of the foundational paperwork and bureaucracy that comes with con running to actually put one together, that and the money. Mm-hmm. And then if you don't succeed, you can screw yourself over very good if you don't protect yourself. Because you have to know marketing, you have to know how to get word out, you have to understand your targets, and you have to know all of the stuff about that to make sure that you have people that know that your event even exists.
Yeah, that all makes sense to me. I know I myself would not survive in one of those higher up positions that you guys have, but
it's an experience
really
for sure.
Cool. That is very true.
Well, it's really cool to hear about the experience from you guys. It's rewarding for you guys, and it's educational for myself. I'm sure it's educational for Space, for our listeners who are the attendees at these conventions. It's very nice to hear what's going on behind the scenes and what we don't understand about it, you know?
Yeah, we work very hard, but we're very invisible in many ways because that's the nature of the work. If we're doing our job correctly, you shouldn't have to see what we're doing. You should just be able to enjoy your con experience and get what you need when you need it, and hopefully not have to do too much line con. But, you know, there's stuff we can't control. And I think that's the other thing, is be gentle when there's stuff we can't control and we're trying to fix. And, you know, it's easy to criticize. It's much harder to help.
Yeah.
Or to do the things that help. And just being forgiving is nice. Just be chill, please.
Yeah.
Before we let go, do you guys want to talk about what your next theme is and where our listeners can find you?
Sure. Our next theme for Vancoufur 2027 is Nightfall, which is a vampire, werewolf, World of Darkness sort of theme. So,
I really want to go to that, by the way.
So, awesome. It happens to be my jam. And as a side plug for myself, I guess, I've done a webcomic, a vampire werewolf comic for like 28 years.
That's right. You showed that to me. That was
It's called really Shifters, and it is out there. So this is a theme that is near and dear to my heart. So I will be working very hard with the theme team this year. I will be cracking the whip, basically going, we're making this amazing, because otherwise I'm going to bite all of you. Because it is my jam and it is my thing that I love. So I'm hoping that we're going to have a really great theme. We usually put our theme through our opening ceremonies. There's a con game. There will be a murder mystery that will tie into it. There's hopefully all kinds of props to take pictures with. That is the goal I would like to. And I hope that some of the vendors decide to theme their booths, which would be awesome. So we'll see. We'll see how much uptake we get, but it is a vampire, werewolf, World of Darkness sort of theme. It's the best way I can explain it. Underworld, you know, that sort of vibe.
Awesome. And the website is vancoufur.org.
Yes.
And
at
like
Vancoufur.org right now, our early bird registration is available. Wow. So it is the cheapest that it will be. It will only go up from here. If you decide that you would like to upgrade your package, you are 100% able to do so. All you got to do is re-log in and pay the difference. And if anybody's considering volunteering, we will have the volunteer form probably up April-ish, mid-April-ish. And we love it when you volunteer in advance so that we can get you oriented and trained more in advance so that we're not doing things at the last second and you have more chance to pick up pre-con hours and participate in things like our barbecue or the Pride events we do or all kinds of other random stuff that we do with volunteers and we're going to be doing more of this year. So if you're interested in helping out, You don't have to be local. We do have lots of stuff you can do remotely. And then if it has an at-con component, if you can make it to con. If not, we can find something else for you to do, like Discord or Twitch moderation if you happen to be good at those things. Otherwise, it might just be pre-con hours, depending on what it is you did. We do have international volunteers. We always have international volunteers, and there are definitely all kinds of different positions that have different kinds of availabilities and whatever, so we can find something that fits whatever it is that you are available for and are up for doing. And we always do try to respect any limitations. If people have, like, they can't stand, or maybe they get overstimulated, like, we will try to put you in positions that are not going to trigger those problems if we can do that. So we are hoping we can talk to our hotel about adding some more space, but we're not 100% sure because right now they are booking out quite a few years. So we have to work within whatever the hotel is willing to negotiate. So we're not going to promise anything, but we are aware that of the people who may have gone to VF who are complaining about capacity. We are aware of your complaints. We are trying to action those complaints, but it really depends on what the hotel can do for us. So we're kind of tied by that. And that is a very common limitation for conventions, is what will the hotel give us? How much is it going to cost? And what is available when?
Yeah.
Just so that people know, we are hearing them. We understand. We're just limited by what it is. Vancouver has a problem, and that problem is the lack of con space. For anything in the mid-range. We don't have anything really great for mid-level cons. It's basically kind of like you can be a small con, you can be hitting the medium, and then you go kind of straight to the convention center, which is prohibitively expensive for us to do. So we do not have millions of dollars to pay for that thing, so we can't go there yet. I am not even kidding.
Oh, I believe it.
The other problem with it is it's not really designed for our kinds of cons. It's designed for trade shows. So that has its own whole other problem. But there's not a lot of big convention space in BC, particularly in hotels. Like, it's just not a thing here.
Yeah.
So that's a problem that we have unique to our region. And that is unfortunate. So we're looking at different solutions, what we can do, and we're just going to keep working on it as much as possible. But yeah, like, if you want to get in on this and you want to get in on this good deal, go ahead and register early, and then you can upgrade or add tickets and stuff later just by going through registration again.
Sounds good.
All right. Well, I want to thank both of you guys for joining us today and sharing your thoughts and your experiences with us. It's like Space said earlier, it's been a bucket list item, but it's just so nice to hear it from you guys. So I want to
appreciate the invite.
Both of you.
Yeah, we appreciate trying to get that out there and raise people's awareness of what it takes to run these events, because it is not a small undertaking.
We know now.
I'm sure. Right? Yeah.
Well, it takes a lot of time and a lot of people and a lot of talent to run these events. So appreciate your local con runners, guys.
Well, for our regular listeners, you guys know where to find us. Blue Sky, Twitter, if you're still doing that. And then you can also email us at talktothemuzzle@gmail.com if you have questions about con stuff. But other than that, I think we are good to go.
Indeed, we are. Thank you all for listening.
Have a good night or day or morning, whenever you're listening to this. It's night when we're recording.
Have a good time.
Have a good time.
Enjoy yourself.
That's right.
Have a good one, everyone. Bye.
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 Take care.